Well, the Arizona Coyotes did not move up in the NHL's draft lottery. Who did? Well, it was Chicago. We're going to talk about that and how it affects the Arizona Coyotes on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, longest running daily Arizona Coyotes podcast. I'm your host, Robyn alongside Carl Pavlock and Matthew Jacobson, who's going to be taking over for Carl starting later this week as the next co-host of the show. Matthew, really good to have you on this show as we talk about the draft lottery for the day.
Yeah, no, I'm just glad that I get to be sad one more time. First in Tempe and now in the office.
It was a very sad event. It felt like an anticlimax because I had to write the recap, and I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. It just kind of ended. But yeah, just a rough draft.
It was a really rough draft or a rough lottery rather. Because there was a lot of things like, hey, maybe like another team moves up, or what's it going to move up? And it really just ends up being like a jumble at the top three, right? And it's just like, oh, great. And the way that even went down was completely boggled, right?
Yes.
You had things get cut off, and as it goes to like a cutaway, we got Kevin Weeksy go ahead and he goes, that's what I'm going to call him, goes ahead and say, hey, Columbus is number 3, and everyone goes crazy.
Yeah, because at that point we knew that Chicago had moved up, and they cut to commercial, so we didn't know how bad it was, so we had to live in the worst fear, and then it just became realized. So there was no relief from that.
I remember that commercial break. I was standing in a group of friends in Tempe, and Chicago's moving up. Well, they won the lottery. Don't need to be here anymore, boys.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, and I know we're talking, we're going to be focusing on how this all affects the Coyotes in a little bit, but I feel like everyone, not just maybe a lot of other people, but most people here are just really upset that Chicago got that number 1.
I think there are people Chicago fans who legit are probably upset. They're going to be happy on the outside, but they're going to go home and be like, we don't deserve this. This is bad. This should not happen. We are in the darkest timeline.
Take a look at what's trending on Twitter right after the events of the lottery. There are essentially 4 different things that were trending on Twitter: the Blackhawks, Kyle Beach, Gary Bettman, and rigged.
Which, I mean, I don't think the NHL would rig this. This is the opposite of what their fans want. And normally you want to play to your fans a little bit. You want to make sure that franchises that franchise players are going where they can be best utilized. This is none of that. This is Chicago, a team that very recently won Stanley Cups, who tanked horribly, who have a massive scandal that just came out years ago, getting a first overall pick. And I don't think they wanted this.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's rigged. I think it's a bit conspiracy theory to say it's rigged, but it would make logical sense why the NHL would want an original 6-team, massive market. They just came off as essential dynasty. It makes a lot of sense why they would want to rig it. With that being said, I don't think it was rigged. I just think they were in the right place at the right time with the right numbers. It's also why, as fun as it was in February, kind of sucks now. We started getting all those wins.
Yeah. I will stand by what I said then. Me being happy about winning has nothing to do with whether or not they win. So I do not regret enjoying that time. Like, it sucked overall, but it was fun at the time and couldn't have done anything different on my end.
True. You can't
No,
control it.
yeah, no, you can't control it, and even more so, like I feel like, a lot of Coyotes fans are super upset that that the Coyotes didn't move up, that they could have had their chance, that they lost just a few more games. But you look at the fact of what the season that they had compared to last year. I think progress. If we're talking about a team that still is looking for a permanent home, which we'll find the results of the election next week, that progress is the most important thing. You need to show that you're moving towards to be a team that's going to be good in the future. And yeah, sure, a player like Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli would easily change that. But this draft is steep. There are other players you can pick who can easily do that. And I think the Coyotes will be fine. I mean, it's not ideal, but they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, who could you subtract from last year's roster that would make up the difference? Like, who, like, meaningfully, what could the Coyotes have done differently? And I'm not sure what it is. Like, do they trade Nick Bjugstad a little bit earlier, not at the deadline? Like, because I know he definitely was really clutch in the third period. Like, he was good at 5-on-5. Because the Coyotes definitely had a lot of overtime losses. So I don't know. Like, we're talking about the Coyotes' brief win streaks, and I get thinking hey, they should have gotten all in like Chicago did, like Anaheim did, but I don't know what that looks like more so than what they did. This is a roster that people said was going to be the worst in cap history.
Oh yeah.
I laughed at them so much. I'm like, they're not going to be bottom three. They're not going to be worse than they were last year, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, you and I, Carl, were talking when the total points projections came out off of for betting odds. You and I were saying hey, the Coyotes are going to go under the
Yeah.
expected 63.5, and they ended up going over that. Huh? Okay. That's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting choice to do. I mean, interesting way to go on the second year of a rebuild where you need important talent. But hey, whatever Barry and Bill Armstrong are doing, I trust. You got to trust them at this point.
So far, the only bad move he's made, and I've said it for a while on my own stuff, is that he threw in that pick protection on the Montreal pick, which technically cost first overall last year, but we got the guy we wanted anyway. That's the worst thing he's done, and it was maybe the trade doesn't happen without it. That's a really good track record so far. So let's just wait and see how it all plays out.
I will add the Connor Timmins trade. Didn't like that, but that is pretty low on the totem pole. Overall, I think that he has some the team has weakness on defense, and I think that is partially self-inflicted, but not in a way that's serious. So I think that they're both doing a good job. I trust them to keep doing that good job.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to continue this conversation in just a sec as we break down the Arizona Coyotes and the NHL Draft Lottery. The Arizona Coyotes will be picking at 6th overall in the upcoming NHL Draft. We're going to continue this conversation in just a second, but first, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors on the show. And today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools to help you find match candidates. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit right now. Once again, at Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Carl forgot the
So
Indeed
let's
you
continue
do.
this episode of Locked On Coyotes. Once again, Robyn Leonio alongside Carl Pavlock and Matt Jacobson. Once again, you're able to find this podcast everywhere you can get your podcast, including now on the Sirius XM app. You just open the Sirius XM app and search Locked On Coyotes. Let's continue this conversation, guys, because Arizona, has never at the like even now, including this in this year, has never moved up in the draft.
Yep.
And you can now so there's another reason why probably you're imagining Coyotes fans being upset because you can just another year they'd strike on the tally.
Yeah, it sucks. The Coyotes have never moved up. They've never drafted above third overall. Um, it's very unfortunate. The Coyotes have either no luck or bad luck at the draft.
I mean, look, whenever I was telling everyone in my little area, as soon as we hit 8th overall and the Coyotes weren't there, I'm like, okay, we didn't drop. 7th overall. So at the very least, like, we normally drop one or two. Like, that's kind of our lottery luck is not dropping.
So at least they didn't drop. They stayed put at number 6, and that's the focus now. Who can the Arizona Coyotes draft at number 6? I'm gonna go ahead and turn to you guys, kind of as maybe some ideas to bounce off you guys. What kind of player do you think Bill Armstrong should be looking for in that 6th spot? I for one am saying like, hey, you know what? The Coyotes have a pretty deep offense prospect pool right now. Look for defense. Get some top end defense, whatever you can get.
Absolutely agree. I mentioned it last segment. Like, my big criticism of Bill Armstrong has been how defense has been handled. I think they're extremely weak on, in that area. So I think that is got to be like the main selection for, if not both picks, then at least 6th overall.
I think at the very least, if like Reinbacher's there at 12th, you take that because I think he's probably one of the better defensemen, at least that I've done any sort of research on. Then looking at some of these projections, I don't mind Dvorsky at 6. If he's there, Dvorsky wouldn't be a bad pick. Zach Benson, who is a teammate of Connor Geekies right now in Winnipeg, there's a couple of decent options. But if you're right there in that sweet spot, you can get a defensive prospect. I like Soderstrom. He did show strides at the end of the year. We need more, especially on the right shot side.
Now, there is the topic of discussion, in addition to all that, of what what's going to happen with Michkov. He's supposed to be a top 5 pick, but a lot of people are still a little skeptical on drafting a Russian player in this upcoming draft. Do you guys think that's going to make a difference, or is he still going to be like a top 5, maybe even a top 3 pick at this point?
You want to take her away, Carl?
So I am looking at the Athletic because they've brought this up. I think a lot of people are concerned about Michkov, and I kind of agree with one of the things they say. The Coyotes are one of 6 teams that are drafting in the top 10 that selected a Russian player last season. It was Duba. I think everyone is pretty good with that pick in terms of his development. And I think that kind of gives Bill Armstrong a good window into what the Russian players think the landscape is going to be in the next couple of years. So I definitely trust his opinion on this more than mine. I think there is a chance that he feels good about it, and he takes a swing at that if he's available.
I think if he's there at 6, you kind of have to. My thing is it's 50-50 whether or not he drops. Like he's going to be a star. He projects to be a star at the NHL level. It's just that Russian factor. I'm not sure how many teams are actually going to be scared off versus the amount that surprisingly could be. But if he's there at 6, I'd have to jump on that. I'd rather have the opportunity of getting a star level player than, well, he might not be here for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too that I think a lot of people are kind of missing over. Yeah, sure, Connor Bedard was the big ticket name, and it will be it is like, and is such a big ticket name that like forget about everybody. Everyone forgets about everyone else, with the exception of maybe Adam Fantilli. But like I said earlier, this is a deep draft. There's Michkov, there's Leo Carlson. There's Dvorsky, as you just mentioned. He's another one that's extremely up there. This is gonna be like a draft in which I think different than last year, Carl. When you and I were talking about last year, where it's like, even though it completely ended up being as different as we thought, where we were like, oh, it's Shane Wright and then everybody else.
Yeah.
This is a different one where it's like, really, it could be anyone's game. Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli are like easy 1-2, but after that, it's anyone's game in the sense that of how deep it is, and we'll see how it goes.
Most projections I see for like the 3 through 7, it's can kind of be scrambled a couple different ways, which is got to be very frustrating for the Coyote staff. But I'm sure they have binders full of information on like every single player in their range they're looking for. We know that the team has done a lot of work in the scouting department, in player development. So I'm kind of hoping that they can grab a good player with 6 and then get like a solid like dark horse with 12. I do kind of want them to go for like a high-end player. If they're not going to get a guaranteed superstar, maybe take a chance on a guy with like a high ceiling.
What would you do if they take, let's say, Benson at 6 and then keep gambling? Michkov goes down to 9. I think Petey brought us up as an example on his show. Would you then try to trade up 12 to get to 9? Because that would be a little more accessible than trying to jump up anywhere near the top 5 right now.
I don't know. I feel like trading up.
Trading up is a risk in the sense that you look at it, especially like with the talk of how Arizona did it last year to trade up. The trade up to get Connor Geekie, for example, what is still one that's being questioned by a lot of other people. And even though Geekie may end up being a really good player, the question to trade up to get him was like, yeah, was that worth it? Is it going to be? And how is it going to work in the end? There's going to be nonstop talk about it. I don't know if I'd take that risk, especially in this draft where it's just deep enough where you can still get something good out of it.
And I'm going to say I am also in that camp for Geekie. I don't know what I think about it. I think time will tell. I liked how he improved this season. I liked what I saw, but it still is like was it worth it to trade up for him? Especially like when seeing some of the other players that they got. Like, I don't know. And if you're asking me for this next draft, it depends on what the trade would be, because it's not going to be like cheap to trade up to even 9. I think teams are going to have their favorites.
Yeah, that's fair, especially if you can see a high profile guy like that dropping, because they like to see it as more worth it just keep the pick themselves.
Yeah.
Now I will kind of go back, circle back to that topic conversation I kind of had earlier on in this second segment. The idea, if let's say like Michkov or someone else, like like another top forward, the Coyotes pick at number 6, that just mean like 12. I think is a non-negotiable defenseman. Like you just. As I've already said it, you already need one. 6 or 12 is going to be a defenseman, one or the other.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, like I said, it's the Coyotes' biggest like weakness And I know that you need to draft on like who's the best player available, not by position. That's how you get screwed over. That's how the Coyotes have gotten screwed over so many times in the past. But the Coyotes need defense, and I think that is just their biggest area right now that they need to improve.
I mean, especially given they lost, the majority of their blue line over this last season.
Yeah. And I don't even know like if there's anyone on the team right now that I am comfortable being a number 2 defenseman in the future, like 5 years from now.
Yeah, like and you and Carl, you and I have talked about this, and Matt, you can be a part of this part too. Is the idea that look, Yusuf Alamaki, good defenseman, fine defenseman, easily great. I think he'll be a great second pair once it all said and done when the rebuild is emerging. Same thing can be said for Mosier. I don't see either two of those claiming a top two D-man minutes.
Oh, I gotta disagree with Moser because he reminds me so much of the defensive upside of McCulloch. I get so excited watching this kid play, and just like his shutdown ability while also having not quite elite but very excellent puck moving ability. Man, he's not the OEL could be a superstar, when he's rising type of first pairing defenseman. I apologize, a little tired right now, but he definitely is still, in my opinion, that really good hybrid first defenseman. He just needs that guy on the right side to complement him, and I'm not quite sure we have that yet.
Shit. I could agree with that. Like, I think maybe like we could see Mosier as a good kind of support player. Like, if you're looking at Zbynek McCulloch, I wouldn't necessarily say he was standalone a top pairing guy, but I think he complemented the number 1 in a really good way, which I think is important. You need a number 1 defenseman in the NHL now.
We need a Cale Makar.
Yeah.
We need the Cale Makar.
Yeah, I mean, if the Coyotes can get a guy like Cale Makar, I don't think there is a guy like that in this upcoming draft. But if they can still find something, something that can that can potentially command those minutes.
I mean, there was Lane Hudson last draft. Had numerous opportunities to get him.
How far did he fall? Did he get picked? 32nd?
I think it was
second round.
Yeah, it was definitely second round. I don't know if it was 32nd though.
It was second. It was like mid-second round. After, I think already after
62nd.
Yeah, now it's already after Duda had already been drafted, right?
Yeah, 62nd overall. So the Coyotes had numerous chances to get him, which
what is it? A defenseman that stands at what was his size? Like 5'8"?
Wikipedia lists him as 5'10", so I'm going to say 5'8", probably.
I mean, wasn't that the case with who was it? Was it Clayton Keller, or like he was like initially listed at 5'10", and then like you look at him on the ice, like no, he's shorter than that.
That is definitely the case with a lot of players. I know a few people had that reaction for Clayton Keller when he first came out, but I mean that worked out well. Like, I possible concern of Bill Armstrong, maybe he gets blinded by size.
Maybe a little bit, because I know some people consider, like you were mentioning, the Geeky move to be a bit of a reach. Some people were talking about Lamoureux, even though I'm pretty big on Lamoureux. No, he's probably not going to be your first pair defenseman. So I think kind of like with Chaika and those certain skill attributes that Barrett Hayton had, Victor Soderstrom had, I think every GM has their weakness, and that's probably Billy's.
Don Maloney, if the players like parent played for the NHL or brother.
Gotta bring in all the kids.
Yeah. Because, speaking of which, the Coyotes have drafted 12th overall twice, Perlini and Max Domi.
I like both those players, but Perlini wasn't as good as I wish he was. Where did Hansel go? Was Hansel a higher first round pick, or was he a middle to low first round pick?
I want to say 11, but
That'd be ironic. I would love
I
that.
have no confidence in that.
He was drafted 17th overall.
17 there.
If we can get
So,
another, Hansel, I'd be okay with that.
Huh?
That's what he's trying to do with all the centers he's drafting. All right, are they big? Can I throw them in front of the net? All right, Martin Hansel.
Except for Cooley. Like he was like, yeah, we got the one short guy. Everyone else is 6'3".
at that point, like if the Coyotes did not draft Cooley, I think I think Arizona would riot because he was easily, without a doubt, the best player to pick at that spot in the draft.
At that spot, yes, definitely.
And he also wanted to be here. That was one of the biggest things that a lot of people discounted with that draft last year. Is one of the biggest questions. He even said it. Bill Armstrong said it going into it. Is you want to be here? Will you play for us if we draft you? And Cooley was, I love Clayton Keller. I love his game. I love what they're doing over there. All the mullet arena. That's kind of cool. Yeah, no, he was born to be a Coyote. Get that kid in the Kachina.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for his announcement. Maybe, who knows if it happens after the election, which is very well possible.
I think it probably will.
Yeah, probably. I'd like to have it before. That way we can get one happy thing before the election gets announced. Because again, we're optimistic about the election, but you want to at least get some happiness.
But this is also like the career of a professional athlete.
True. Yes.
I don't think he cares much about our happiness.
You know what? I don't need this.
Love it. Anyway, Austin Matthews coming home. You heard it here first. We
Yeah.
were all on the phone with them beforehand. They're going to throw game 4. It's going to be 4-1.
Yeah, that's why the NHL did rig the draft for the Coyotes. They knew that Austin Matthews was going to be here. It'd just be too crowded.
Because if the Coyotes end up getting both Austin Matthews and Connor Bedard, that would just be OP.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, he's already going to bring McDavid. McDavid's going to force his way out, and it's going to be a 3-team trade. We cannot have McDavid, Matthews, and Bedard. I'm sorry. I love stacked teams too, but we can't have a super team.
That sounds like an NHL team. Like an NHL 2025. My top line, Bedard, McDavid, Matthews.
We're playing. What are we playing? A hockey ultimate team right now? Like,
yep. No, a franchise mode with forced trades on, so I could trade. Let's say a
trade mode easy.
Yeah.
All right, Christian Fisher, you're an Edmonton Oiler, 1-for-1.
I love it. Anyways, though, as we get ready to end things, as we are getting close to running out of time on this episode, do either of you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to share? Carl, we'll start with you.
It's I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad we can start looking at like players and actually start like planning things out. To me, I'm never able to like look at prospects when the draft happens because I know that something weird is going to change. So I'm glad to be able to get started on the next step.
Matt?
I'm just happy they didn't drop. Look, we get screwed a lot, genuinely do. We at least can get 6th, 12th, maybe a trade up, maybe a trade down. Doesn't matter. We can at least plan for what's going to be there, whether or not it's worth the extra assets or the Dvorsky.
Right, absolutely. And now with the us knowing that the Arizona Coyotes will be picking at 6 throughout the rest of this offseason, we're going to, here on the Locked On Coyotes podcast, we bringing on some of our Locked On draft friends, the guys who actually focus on this stuff, our scouts who will help us break down certain prospects as we do draft profiles all throughout the offseason leading up to the NHL entry draft later this summer. Anyways, though, that is it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcasts, including, once again, now on the SiriusXM radio app. Once again, all you got to do is open the SiriusXM app and search Locked On Coyotes. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Locked On Coyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. Carl Pavlok is at 5 for Howling. Matt Jacobson is at The Easy Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask us a question if you have one, and we'll interact right back and answer them on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.